Good afternoon, America. It's Thursday, September 4th, 2025. These are the four things to know this afternoon. Let's get to it. The Justice Department has opened a criminal investigation into Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook over alleged mortgage fraud, including issuing grand jury subpoenas in Georgia and Michigan. According to sources, this is a deep dive into those mortgage applications. You know, she had the one in Georgia, said it was her primary residence. 2 weeks later, one in Michigan, she said was her primary residence. That can't be possible. She claims this information came up during her hearing and that she's been open and forthright about it. No one seems to recall the information coming up at the time. Now, a couple of points here. First, Cook's a sitting Fed governor. That's unusual territory for a criminal probe, and it does actually raise questions about the central bank's independence. If the investigation is actually rooted in finding criminal activity, well, then God bless them, pursue it. If this is just a political stunt, they need to back off. Stable monetary policy requires a central bank that isn't jerked around by whichever party's in power, though there are a lot of people who want to get rid of the Fed and go to that. I think it's a bad idea. Now, the facts as reported. There's grand jury activity. That's a big deal here. There's alleged misrepresentations concerning property documentation, and Cook's team again says any inconsistencies were already disclosed to Congress during her nomination period. A prosecution needs to be brought because the evidence is there, not because the optics are useful here. If the DOJ can prove fraudulent statements on mortgage applications, well, charge them. Let the grand jury decide. Let the jury decide ultimately in a trial. If it can't, step back. Let the central bank do its job. Either way, don't let the Fed's credibility become collateral damage here just to make a political point about trying to capture the Fed. Up next, McDonald's. It has fired a shot across the industry's bow in a long-running debate over tipping in interviews and a lot of drama with trade groups. McDonald's is pushing to end the sub-minimum tip wage model. Now, what is this all about? Well, McDonald's is arguing that restaurants that are fast casual and sit down, that they can pay their employees less than the federal minimum wage, and those employees then can get tips and offset it. But the workers who work at McDonald's can't without the abuse of the little screens now demanding a tip for everything. And McDonald's says it puts fast food restaurants at a competitive disadvantage, and also that the tipping model is outdated and outmoded. It's actually left the National Restaurant Association in protest with apparently CEO Chris Kempczynski over the tip wage rules. Now, what's actually happening here? There are a couple of trends here you need to know about. One, tip creep. You and I know all the time digital prompts have migrated tipping far beyond wait service. You got the counter orders, the airport kiosks, even the coffee vending machines. You've got regulatory divergence as well that doesn't seem to be going away anytime soon. Some states have eliminated the tip model altogether. Other states haven't. You've got tax and labor policy. One more angle here. This also undercuts the political narrative that large chains reflexively fight wage increases. But actually what McDonald's is doing here is it's encouraging getting rid of the tipping model because that'll make those restaurants have to raise wages where McDonald's is. And then McDonald's wants even higher than the federal wage. So lastly, keep in mind here, McDonald's is pushing franchises to lower consumer prices right now. Going after the fast, casual, sit-down restaurant model is a competitive issue for McDonald's. This isn't just altruism on their part. Many servers as well prefer tip culture because they may make less in the overall federal minimum wage, but they make so much off tips. And now those tips, they can deduct them. Up next, the Pentagon has approved the use of Naval Station Great Lakes. I did not know we had Naval Station Great Lakes, but apparently we do. It's north of Chicago. It's going to be a staging hub for immigration enforcement operations led by the Department of Homeland Security. The Defense Department has allowed the staging of ICE agents and others there, even as the governor of Illinois, JB Pritzker, objects. Here's the careful line to walk. The federal government controls immigration. It can deploy ICE and other agencies as needed. Using a federal installation as a staging point is well within the executive branch's rights and powers and duties. But if those federal agents go in under regular law enforcement, it engages the posse comitatus law from the 1800s, which bars federal troops from civilian law enforcement. They can supplement. They cannot operate directly as law enforcement. Recent litigation has already seen some judges say deployments have been overly broad and violate posse comitatus. Well, you're going to have to get the governor to consent if you want some level of that engagement here. Now, there's daylight between staging ICE on a Navy base and putting soldiers on Chicago streets as primary law enforcement, and the president's going to have to thread the line here. Two truths can coexist. First, enforcement matters. Cities dealing with spikes in violent crime and illegal reentry need visible, sustained federal help. A secure border and interior is a sovereign function. Also, constitutional guardrails matter as well here. Even a justified crackdown has got to honor the limits of the law, or we risk injunctions that stop an effort that probably is useful. So use the base, surge the agents, prioritize criminal fugitives and gang members and violent offenders, the illegal aliens. Ensure tight rules of engagement, but don't violate the law. That's what we need to do. Next. Well, this one's actually interesting to me. This week's U.S. strike on a Venezuelan-linked drug-running vessel in the Southern Caribbean killed 11 suspected members of Tren de Aragua Syndicate. It wasn't a one-off. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says there's going to be more of this as the Pentagon treats these as military targets. Now, let's separate the threads here. One, deterrence. For years, interdiction meant seizures and arrests, not kinetic strikes. The rules of the game have changed. The White House intends to change those rules of law here, and that leads me to law and legitimacy. Critics argue lethal force at sea has got to have a clear, imminent threat to the United States. And even if there's a terror designation, there's no erasure of due process rights here. That's what the critics say. So there are going to be challenges in Congress, which isn't going to do anything, and the courts, which might do something. And then there's strategy. Narrow strikes can't replace broader policy. If Washington wants to dry up the routes of drug trafficking from Venezuela, it needs intelligence fused into the regions. It needs maritime domain awareness, and it needs pressure on the regimes, including Maduro's regime, which we're trying to undermine. This is the posture conservatives have long argued for: peace through strength, the willingness to take the shot where the target is real, and a commitment to stay inside the law so the mission survives the next court challenge, all of which should be possible. And yes, I do applaud the Trump administration going down and killing the bad guys coming out of Venezuela, not waiting for them to get here where they can pay lawyers to drag out the process. Good for the Trump administration, treating the cartels as agents of a hostile regime, because they are. That's the 4 things you need to know this afternoon. I'm Erick Erickson. Have a great afternoon.